Vicki, how do you correct a child's bad behavior with positive parenting?
Okay, here's one you've probably never heard.
Oh,
How do you correct a child's bad behavior with positive parenting?
you're going to have to watch the video to find out. We've talked a lot about positive parenting. There's a whole positive parenting playlist here on the channel. And the thing that most parents get concerned about is bad behavior.
Of the children.
Well, you'd hope so. Sometimes maybe the parents get into bad behavior too. Positive parenting is maybe the opposite of bad behavior by the parent.
Right.
And if there's only two options, positive or negative, then let's pick the positive.
So now we've got some bad behavior. How are we going to handle that with our positive parenting?
I think one of the important starting places is to police our language. How do we phrase something? Instead of saying no all of the time, what if we could redirect or steer them in a positive direction?
So trying to find ways to redirect their activity or their behavior is a really great first step.
A subtle but important difference. Let's say that you've got a toddler who's starting to get into something that they shouldn't get into. Instead of saying don't or stop, you simply say, hey, how about we do this instead?
So
And
just
that's
kind
what
of
you mean by the
redirect their
redirection.
behavior. Right.
Which is in a positive way. I love this one, Vicki. Get to yes. Somehow
Often as possible.
find a way, as a parent, to get to yes. You'll notice that you're constantly saying no. What if you could get to yes? And it's okay if it's yes when or yes if, but that's more positive than simply saying no.
Yeah, I've even had kids just kind of joking like, Mom, can I drive the car? Say yes, when you get a license, when they're young kids, We
Brilliant.
get to yes as often as possible because there are times when we have to say no. We
Right.
want that no to carry more weight. And so get to yes as often as possible.
Ooh, that is a good point, Vicki. Sometimes we say no so often that it doesn't mean anything anymore. And this will increase the value of the no when you have to use it. Beautiful.
Another really important step is to avoid at all costs criticizing your child in public. There may be times that you need to correct them, and you need to do so with full openness, but let's not do it in front of their friends or maybe even in front of a sibling, just not in public. Take care of all of that correction in a little bit more private way. And be aware of criticizing at any time. That's really not very
I was
helpful.
just thinking, even when it's not in public,
Yeah.
are there ways that we can approach this in positive language with positive energy? Positive parenting is all about keeping it on the upside.
Right.
And you can correct a child using very positive language.
Exactly.
Like we were saying earlier, Vicki, if you can redirect rather than don't do that, it's simply, what if you were to try this instead? Or taking them in a positive direction. A lot of times, Vicki, kids are going to get our attention the most when they're out of order,
When
right?
something's going terribly wrong.
Oh, yes. That reminds me of a T-shirt. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
When the kids were in drama back in junior high, and the stage crew wore these black T-shirts, and it simply said on the T-shirt, if you can see me, something has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And that's how it is with our kids
Yeah.
sometimes.
Sometimes we don't see them doing the good. So it actually takes more energy from ourselves to catch them doing good and give them some positive feedback, especially for that child that seems to need redirection a lot. Try to find the times that they're doing good. Or even right as you've redirected them, go ahead and praise them as soon as they're engaged in it so that you have something positive to go forward.
Right. Become a monitor of good behavior. See if you can catch it happening. And then reinforcing it, helping them to see, oh, this is something that can get mom's attention. This is something that really pleases dad. Instead of always getting the attention when they're doing something that's wrong or against the rules or disruptive. Kids operate on attention. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
And bad breath is better than no breath at all.
Right.
So they're going to go for whatever kind of attention they can get, even if it's negative, unfortunately. And that becomes kind of a difficult dynamic to change. So watch for the good behavior.
Now, if there is a bad behavior and you need to correct it through some way, let the consequences be the guide. Let the consequence do the teaching.
Right. As opposed to mom's mad or dad's really upset about this.
Yeah.
They start to connect cause and effect. So if you're always upset when they do something wrong, they're going to feel like, oh, the consequence for this behavior is that my parent gets really upset.
Right.
As opposed to, my life is better when I make better choices. Right. That's what we want them to learn.
Remember that when a child is in stage 1, consequences are the guiding force, right? So you're going to want to be near your child with the poor behavior, right? And you're going to want to help them have that consequences. If you've told them to stop jumping on the couch, you're going to get near them physically when you ask them to stop jumping on the couch, so you can assist them to stop, because it's all about outside reinforcement. Right?
And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, what do you want them to do instead of jumping on the couch?
Right.
Taking it back to that positive, here's what I would like to see. Focusing on what you want and the desired outcomes rather than what you don't want or what you want them to stop doing.
Right. Now, a child who might be in stage 2 or 3, you can buy yourself a little time. I think one of the things that we get stuck in so fast is we think that we have to provide a consequence right away. Children who are behaving in stage 2 or 3, you've got time, you've got communication, you've got consultation. So buy yourself a little time and you can talk about it when they are no longer in the fight or flight. Because a lot of the times bad behavior is from a fight or flight mode.
Going back to one of our positive parenting tools, think versus fight.
Yeah. And just remember, every interaction you have with your child, you are inviting them to either think or fight.
When you buy time, it invites them to think. Consider what effect this might have with your child. If you were to say, you know what, sweetie, we need to talk about that. We'll do that after dinner.
Now they get to think about it for a
while.
while.
Now they get to think. Exactly, and that's the point. Now they might try to fight with you, and you're simply going to defer and say, you know what, that's really important. We're going to talk about that after dinner or some future time. But you're buying some time. That allows you to think too, which might be really important.
Yeah. A really important distinction to make is between behavior and the child himself. Brene Brown is a really great resource for understanding this difference between behavior and the child. Now, we've got to be really careful when the child's behavior is out of the ordinary or out of what we expect. We need to make sure that we focus on the behavior versus the child himself. So she talks a lot about shame and guilt. And if you haven't heard anything by her about that, just go and Google Brene Brown and shame and guilt. She has some really great stuff. But the difference between shame and guilt is it comes up from self-talk. So say I broke my mom's plant. You know, her favorite vase that has her plant in it, right? Okay, so shame is, I am so stupid. I am such a klutz. It usually talks about me, about the person.
Personalized, right?
Right. Versus guilt, which is, I really should have been more careful. That was a bummer. I wish I would not have done that. Or you talk about the behavior. You know, boy, I was klutzy in that moment.
So what you're saying from the Brene Brown work is that we make it about the behavior, not about the person.
Right.
Which is a real key to positive parenting. That's something that will help your child have different self-talk as well.
Right. So you're modeling the kind of self-talk. So it might be that, oh, you made a mistake. That's okay. Everybody's human. Humans make mistakes. And you talk about the behavior versus you are just always
You're
blah, blah,
always
blah.
or you're never.
Or you're judging the child.
You're so... Right. So it's not personalized. It's about the behavior. It's not about the person.
Right. A lot of the times poor behavior, sometimes it's just not very smart thinking. You know, they didn't think through all the way to the end of
Mine usually is
a
lack of thinking.
Didn't go all the way to the end of that whole stream.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is seeking attention, right? So I think one of the things you can do is try to increase the time you give to your child to have a voice, to have your attention. Maybe on a particularly difficult day, maybe just increase time reading by an extra 15 minutes at night so that you can debrief, talk, have some time to interact. Give them a voice to describe or to talk about what's going on inside them.
This is something that Vicki has done so nicely through the years as the kids are settling down to bed, for example. And I remember, Vicki, so many times when you would go in and have them start talking a little bit about wins and grins, things that happened that were awesome, or ways to go and ways to grow. You know, what did you encounter that was difficult today, or what would you like to see happen differently in the future? And this is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, giving them a voice, a time to talk about different things.
To talk about, express, and debrief what's going on in their life. That also increases your influence as a parent because it's bringing you closer in that relationship. You get to create a bond with them that is based on your role as a parent who is benevolent and generous and loving, and that increases your influence as well. Positive parenting is probably the answer to all of the world's problems, don't you think?
I'm sure you think so.
I'm glad that you think so, and that's why we created a positive parenting community. Come and connect with us at parentingpowerup.com, where we're putting this positive parenting community together so that we can support each other in the most important job in the world. parentingpowerup.com.
See you there.
Wish